Hello, everyone. Welcome to Know the Faith, Defend the Faith. My name is William Hemsworth. It's great to be with you for today's episode. Honored to have my guest, Brendan Lyons. He's the author of a great book called I Can Hear Music. He's a author and father, lives in Pennsylvania. Brendan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for the work you're doing. I know I've been following you on Twitter for a little bit. Appreciate the candidness, the honesty, and holding people to task on this pro-life issue. So that's a great thing. Thanks for all you do.
Well, I'm not the best at it, but every once in a while, I just there's certain things can't let stand. It's hard to listen to people misrepresent what we're really all about. So, but the other thing about Twitter, you got to try to be nice about it because most people aren't. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's all that toxic stuff that gets all the likes and retweets, but that's well, that's not very Christ-like. So
No.
in most things, but sometimes it has to happen. Yeah. So maybe can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of what you've been up to?
Sure. So I am I'm a father of one, a husband. We just had our first daughter last year. It was right before the pandemic started. So that was interesting. It actually kind of ended up being almost a bit of a blessing because we got to stay home. I realized that it was a struggle for a lot of people, and it was its own challenge for us. But the silver lining was we got to be home with Marielle for longer than we normally would have. So I work in Catholic ethics. Actually, I work for an organization called the National Catholic Bioethics Center. I am the associate editor there. And if you haven't heard of it, it's a great organization that helps people, particularly people who are in the healthcare field. And if they have an issue come up and they're not sure if it aligns with their Catholic faith, if they're being asked to do something, they're not sure if it's okay, or if they just have an issue that they want to ask an expert, you can call into the National Catholic Bioethics Center, and they have professional ethicists, PhD people with PhDs who can tell you and explain to you why or why not the Catholic Church says certain procedures are okay, how much you can actually participate in that, and all that. It's a great organization. I try to plug it anytime I can, not just because I work there, but because it's a really helpful if you have something that if you have like say for example, if you needed to get a hysterectomy because of cancer, but you're pregnant, they can help you walk through if you give them your specific issue, like your specific position, how far along the baby is, they can help you really reason out the morality behind that. Now that's a big thing,
right? Yeah.
But especially with a lot of the other issues coming up now in healthcare people being forced to do certain to participate in certain things, you can call them in and ask them, what's okay for me to help with and what's not okay for me to help with. So that's my job. My passion is writing. So I wrote I Can Hear Music about maybe 2 years ago now. Here I have a copy of it.
Okay,
backwards,
great.
I think. I started writing it when my daughter was about a month along. We started reading into how she developed, and my wife and I are both musicians. She's a great singer. I am mediocre at a number of different instruments, and I was really surprised to find out exactly how early on a baby can hear things. It's before 20 weeks, they're hearing the heartbeat, they're hearing gurgling stomachs, and they can hear their mother. By 22, 23 weeks, they can hear you outside. So I was really thrilled, especially to find out that at Christmas, my daughter would be able to hear me. The reason I was so excited about that is because my father, for my entire life, has read us "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" on the night before Christmas, and Marielle was going to her name is Marielle. It's off of Maristella, Star of the Sea. Um, but yeah, so basically the day of Christmas Eve, she was going to be at the point where she could hear me outside. So it seemed providential to me that I would get to read her Twas the Night Before Christmas on her very, very first Christmas Eve. So
That's great.
so yeah,
You continue that tradition.
yeah, I was, and you know, it's just a great feeling to be able to pass that on. In
Right.
my parents' house, there's a picture of my grandfather reading to to his four sons. Then we have pictures of my father reading to me and my brother and sister, and a picture of me reading to my wife's stomach. Well, now we have one. Now we have one of her born and me reading it. But that really set me down the path of exploring when a baby could hear, and also what they might remember afterwards.
Okay.
I really dove into that, and I found that you would never expect how much they can remember. And because you kind of expect, okay, they're in the womb, they're surrounded, they don't,
Right.
they're growing, they're kind of busy with the whole growing thing, but they will actually respond to outside stimuli. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you poke your wife's stomach, they'll move away. Now
I'm guilty of that. I've done that. So I'm not.
I would strongly suggest that you also move away after you poke your wife in the stomach. But yeah, the fact that they'll remember after they're born was also very striking, and I actually got to see it firsthand. My wife is a cantor, and she sang at a couple different churches, and one of the most common songs is the Sanctus.
Right.
They do the Holy, 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 and the music was the same for at least two of the churches. And my daughter would kind of wiggle around in the womb for that. Now, then after she was born, when we went right into quarantine and we were all watching, where most of us, I guess, I don't know, we were watching mass on television, and she was a baby. She wasn't really paying attention to what was going on until the Sanctus, and then she starts craning her neck to see the television because she remembered it. It wasn't just one time. It was, and it wasn't just the sound of the organ, because the organ played other songs that she didn't respond to. So several Sundays in a row, she was looking to see the Sanctus. So that kind of made it in, and so the book itself talks about music. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
Where you can hear music, the baby can hear music, how it starts, and then it goes into remembering afterwards, and that whole experience that the child will have. They'll learn music, they'll learn sounds, they'll learn the heartbeat, and then they'll carry it back out. Because if you put a baby next to your heart, that baby is like, oh, there's the heartbeat. Okay, I'm soothed.
Right.
So, and another thing I have that may have been gratuitous, but it was important to me to include, was my work. At the end of the book, actually, this is in the first copy that doesn't have it. I added it later. You can actually go in and you can look up the research studies that went into.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, that went into when babies can hear, what frequencies they can hear in the womb, and remembering things afterwards. So there's a little timeline, there's a brief timeline, and then there's actually some citation. That's a little bit of a product of my job, because citing your sources is always really important when you're trying to talk about anything. So now, your 2-year-old probably not going to care, but you know what? As they get older, and also for you, it can hurt,
Right. But I think that's important though. So can you walk us through like when the child starts to hear and maybe what they remember? Is there like a time frame that they do?
Yeah. So around 20 weeks, 18 to 19 to 20, they can really hear heartbeat and stomach gurgling. And then around 23, 24 weeks, they can hear lower voices. They actually can't hear higher voices until about 30 to 32 weeks. In the book, I mentioned that as I kind of frame that as when you're in the choir. So at 30 weeks, you could hear the full range of voices. So the baby could get the range of the choir. Now, they're not going to come out being able to sing along, but they will recognize things. They will respond to things in a similar way as they did before they were born. So it's really, around 20 weeks, those earbuds will start to really receive sound. So those earbuds started budding 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, pretty early
into on. So about the same time that the arms are you got your joints in your arms. So around 7-8 weeks, you've got ears, you've got joints in your arms, and not that much you can do with them at that point, but they're there. So yeah, about 20 weeks is when the baby is really starting to pick up sounds.
That's great. Now, this book came out in January. Was there a specific reason why January was the right time for it?
I would love to say that it was meant to come out alongside the March for Life, but no, it was just when I could get it out, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into getting the illustrations together and everything I needed to get printing. So no, that was kind of a coincidence, but it was a happy coincidence. So
now you showed us some of the illustrations there. I guess, what was that process like, getting those illustrations done, and of course matching them with the writing to get that message across about how they can hear music?
I worked with a young artist named Missy Johnson. And she was we found each other through a mutual Twitter follow. It was a bit of a less orthodox way of doing things, but I really wanted to find somebody else who was passionate about the subject. So she's a member of, have you ever heard of the Life Runners? Dr. Pat Castle he's
I haven't.
Relevant Radio. Oh yeah, it's there now. I'm not a runner. I'm cutting this off at the shoulder, so you can't tell that I'm not a runner, but I'm certainly not. But they basically they run for pro-life. They wear their pro-life shirts, they have a chant, and they go to marathons across the country, and they jog and they try to spread the pro-life message that way. So she, I knew, was somebody who was very passionate through that. So we really just talked about what it should look like. I did some terrible sketches of the basic ideas because I cannot draw, and then we came up with a couple. We talked it over, and then she did the rest. I think it's important to let the artist be the artist. Like, I wasn't going to tell her like how to draw everything, and I think that it came out very well. It's cute illustrations that I think go with the kind of a cute theme, and frankly I wanted it to be adorable, and I think it is. So
and it is, the illustrations are really good, and I could see kids gravitating to it, obviously. Now, is there how do I phrase this? How can we as parents, because it's a children's book, how could we help our children appreciate the message in the book?
Well, I think who this book is especially great for is young children who have another sibling on the way.
Oh, okay. Because
I think that you get the idea that, okay, well, mommy has a baby in her belly. That's accurate, more or less. But it's not necessarily telling you what's going on. And this, I think, is a great way for children to get like a little piece of what's going on, because you can feel a kick, you can know that there's a baby in there. But if you're 5 years old, what does that really mean to you? But if you see, oh, the baby can hear me, the baby can hear me sing, I could sing to the baby, I could pray with the baby. These are all things that I think invite a child to interact with the baby rather than just kind of know that the baby's there. And it's an encouragement to communicate with that child, because you can actually start bonding with your child, with your younger sibling, well before that sibling is born. Halfway through the gestation process, basically, you can do that. And originally I was kind of thinking of this as something that a mother I thought of it as like a baby shower gift. The mother could read it to her child after 20 weeks, 22 weeks, to just get started, because babies learn language from the get-go,
right?
So you can start to you can start to communicate with your child, and they'll start to learn. I mean, they're not going to come out fluent in English, but they might recognize certain things. So, but someone I was talking to about it mentioned the idea of like, oh well, the 5-year-old could be reading this to the baby, communicating with the baby. And I thought, yeah, that's actually a great point. I started with a fairly narrow idea in mind, and I've had a number of people come up with even better ways of using this book, including my the illustrator was the one who said to me, this might be a good gift for women who come to a pregnancy center looking for help. It would be something that, for instance, the Knights of Columbus do their ultrasound program, where they're trying to put the ultrasounds, and they've done 1,000 now, I think. And that's a literal look inside the womb, and this is a figurative look inside the womb that gives you an idea of what is happening. So I'll be honest, I think an ultrasound is probably a little more a little more of an exact look inside the womb. No, it's definitely a little more exact, but this is something that they could take with them, and that's actually something that I'm working on in an experimental phase at the moment. So it's an experiment. A group of Knights of Columbus Council has given 5 copies each to 4 pregnancy centers that they had provided ultrasounds for.
Awesome.
And we're going to see how that goes. So I'm not going to say who it is or where it was, because we don't know. Don't necessarily know if it's going to, but we're testing it. So I'm really excited about that, because I would really like to get the book into the hands of people who are going to read it to their gestating child, and have that add to the experience.
No, that's awesome. That's great. Now, how does your book fit into the overall pro-life concept, if you will, into defending life?
Well, I think what I aimed to do was tell a story, tell a cute story that you can connect to, but also tell a story that's literally based on the science of what's happening. So you're not going to get a lot of specific scientific words and concepts, but the book itself is based on communicating the scientific reality of what's happening in the womb in a way that a child would understand it. And I think that that's something that we're getting better at, but something that when I was growing up wasn't really there for me. The communication of communicating what is really going on, it was really just, okay, well, the baby's alive, we know it's alive, it continues to be alive. Well, there's a lot of evidence for that really doesn't take a genius to understand. It doesn't take a scientist to understand. It doesn't take a 34-year-old man to understand. It really just takes somebody who can get the concept of this baby can hear and learns those sounds. I mean, if that's not an argument for pro-life, the pro-life movement, I don't know. Right. I can't see why it wouldn't be. It's just, we got a person in there who's learning, who's going to carry things that they've experienced in the womb onward. So I really appreciate a lot of the ideas that we try to teach children about compassion, about looking out for people who are defenseless. But I also think there's a great avenue to combine like scientific reality with the pro-life movement, with because I mean we do it for adults. I think we should do it for children too. And I
Absolutely.
have that I have that feeling with a lot of concepts that we kind of hold off until later, that I think we could start laying the groundwork for much earlier than we are. So
Sure. And like you mentioned in your book, you have those citations that the parents, if they wanted to go deeper, they could absolutely do that.
mhm.
So
Yeah, if there's any question in someone's mind when they get this book, that it's accurate to say that the child can hear the whole choir at 30 weeks. If you flip to the back, you can
check it out
you can
yourself.
find where I where I found that information.
So what's been the feedback on your book so far?
It's been pretty good. It's a lot of people have commented on how cute it was. I've had a couple people who agree that it's important way to try to communicate the issue. Really, the only negative feedback I had is that it doesn't mention God. It does mention singing in church. That wasn't me trying to dodge my faith, but it was really just trying to zero in on the scientific thing that was going on. I am a Catholic. If anybody ever asked, I would hope there would be no question. But I really, one of the people I follow on Twitter and their blog as well is Secular Pro-Life, and I think that one of the great things about them is that they really show the work, and that's something that I really wanted to do. Now, I think that you can show the work and support Catholic conclusions on most ethical issues, but yeah, I was inspired by that to make something that anyone reading it, regardless of their religion, or they could just see the truth of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was the only negative feedback I got was from a Catholic bookstore that was like, "You should have mentioned God," and I was like, you know what? You're probably right, but if anybody asked me who inspired me to do this, it was God and my daughter. So
Absolutely. Now, where can our listeners pick up your book?
So the book can be found it's on Amazon. It's also on Barnes and Noble. It's on Books A Million and christianbook.com. You can find it all those places. There's a number of Catholic and Christian small bookstores that have picked it up. I could not tell you specifically where all those places are, but if you went and asked for it,
they can get it, no problem.
Yeah. Also, I have I mentioned the Knights of Columbus I've been trying to work with, and some other I've been working with, and some other pro-life organizations for pro-life groups. If you're a pregnancy center, or if you're the Knights of Columbus, or if you're any pro-life group, you can contact me directly, and I will do bulk orders for half price. And for me, bulk is just 5 or more. So I don't know, is there, so can I give my email? Is that?
Oh, go ahead. Whatever you want to give, it's totally fine.
Yeah, we might want to, are you able to write it like in the description?
Yeah, I'll put everything in the notes as well.
So it's LYNDON BRONS at gmail.com. Just my name a little mixed up. If I could go back to when I was 17 years old and I made it, I might have gone with something more professional sounding. And in the future, if I actually have a website, which is something I hope to do, I'll make a real one. But currently, that's what I'm working with. So that's all right. It's LYNDON BRONS at gmail.com. If you reach out, I have an order form that a pro-life organization can buy a couple. So if you are interested in buying some for a pregnancy center, or even if you just want more than one, reach out to me. We can try to work something out.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. There's a local pregnancy center in town, and I know one of the directors. I think I'll drop a couple off for her.
Oh, good.
So we get you over in Tucson.
Oh, great.
No,
Yeah, I've got a friend of the family brought some over to one near me in Pennsylvania, and they it was well received. At some point, I'm going to go in and see them, but with COVID restrictions are lifting soon, so we're gonna work out a tour. So that'll be nice to get to see some folks who have seen the book in person.
Great. Now, before I let you go, I understand you're coming out with a podcast pretty soon. You want to? Oh. You know, I had to go over that since we talked about it off air, but I want to make sure we plug that too.
Yeah, sure. So, a friend of mine, my friend John Comiskey, he's a huge comic book guy. I like comic books. I am not as knowledgeable about them as he is, but I do work in Catholic ethics. So we got together and decided we were going to do a podcast about comic books and ethical issues in comic books through the lens of our Catholic faith. So that is called Super Humana Vitae.
All right. I like it.
And so we actually came out with our little teaser trailer just came out yesterday. So in June we're going to start posting our other episodes. So if you're interested in comic books and Catholic ethics and you want to hear two non-exactly experts talk about it, that's but people who are very passionate about it. So you can tune into that.
Good deal. Brendan, before I let you go, can you give us your email address one more time?
Oh, sure. It's LYNDON BRONS @gmail.com.
Great. Well, Brendan, thank you for your time today. Thanks for sharing everything you're up to. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. God bless you.
God bless you too.